thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time. I know you're really busy. But what I wanted to talk to you about today, I know in your career you've done a lot in the technology space, so I thought maybe we could tie that into what's happening in the wealth and investment space. And just doing some research for that. In the past I used to go to fintech overseas a bit. So I was going through kind of the keynote speakers, and one of the statements that resonated with me, which I found was one of the top discussion points this year, and I'd like to read it to you and then get your views on it.
Sure.
Basically, they're saying technology is fundamentally changing the finance and the commerce ecosystem. I think we can agree with that. And consumer businesses and governments are adapting to the digital world. But obviously now with what's happening with COVID, they're having to adapt faster. The plans that they had for maybe 2 years out, 3 years out are now moving to 6 months. Do you think that's the case, or do you think people are starting to panic?
It's a good question. I definitely believe that there's been an acceleration in adoption of technology in a big way. Whether or not all of these changes are here to stay, I think remains to be seen. I think one of the areas where we've been thinking about this a lot is in this whole future of work scenario. So before COVID hit, we were actually in the process of looking for new buildings for Sasfin, and this was a desk per person plus capacity to grow, etc. I mean, it was we were looking at quite a lot of space. Subsequently, and I haven't been as involved in the detail, but been getting a lot of feedback, been reading a lot of the research. You're looking for much less space, and really the only reason that you're going to have a building in future, or the current thinking is, we're not through this yet, right?
Yeah.
We don't know exactly where this lands. But the current thinking, from my perspective, is you're going to need an office for two reasons. One is for marketing, right? Get your brand out there, a place to receive clients, to present to clients, whatever it might be, and for collaboration. For ticking boxes, for getting tasks done, for getting through a to-do list, I think remote working is going to be the perfect place to be. So I think it's going to be very different for different people in this space. I think salespeople probably going to spend a lot more time in front of it. But with that said, we're still social beings. So I don't see us being exactly where we were sort of in a hard lockdown, or even where we are in this moment. Even in this moment, we're not seeing a lot of sort of office going. And I'm just using that as one example of all technology. So people who are technophobes have certainly sort of embraced technology, and I don't see them going back. But I think that we probably land somewhere in the middle. I think definitely an acceleration, but not, I think, at the expense of some of the sort of human interactions that we've become accustomed to, or need, I think, as social beings.
It's interesting you say that, and I think the technophobe area is interesting to me because I myself am slightly afraid of technology. I like the idea. I think sometimes it's difficult to implement. Ideas are great, and there are lots of ideas, but they need people to get it done. Do you think the complexity in our world makes the implementation of IT that much harder, almost impossible? Or do you think we just look at it, we overcomplicate it ourselves?
Definitely overcomplicated ourselves, but the role of technology is to remove friction from my perspective, right? To make it easier. If you can do something quicker and easier by picking up a phone, then using the technology is not doing what it's supposed to do, right? So I think it's all about that. And when I think about the role of technology in our game, it's about removing friction, and it's about the client experience. It's easier for me to go on to the Sasfin banking app and go check my bank balance and to do a payment, and to pick up the phone and try and organize that, or send a mail, or whatever it might be. But I think that in the investment world, we still deal with that, and I think we will for a long time, deal with the trusted relationship. It's very different. But certain elements are going to fall into that bucket, and certain elements are going to fall into that sort of trusted relationship bucket. But it is complex to make things simple. That is the complexity.
But I appreciate the complexity, but don't you have conflict now? Because you spent a big portion of your time at Sasfin building a top advice broker and being recognized through your awards. And the advice naturally speaks to the fact that we have these one-on-one engagements with clients face-to-face over the telephone. Now we're going this route where we're taking this away by implementing technology, or is that not the case? That's not how you see it?
I think it depends on the client and the need of the client.
Okay.
So I hate the word robo advice, but I'm going to put it out there, right? Because what exists in the world, there's no such thing as robo advice as I see it at this stage. Okay. There are online financial needs analysis tools and product selection tools and those kinds of things. And I think what may or may not come in terms of true robo advice, we haven't seen yet. So let's call it robo advice 2. That's still coming. I think that a portion of the market will land on a completely self-directed or DIY space or place. I think that the majority of the market will land up in a hybrid where your trusted relationship and the frictionless or client experience element of technology intersect. That's going to be where the winners are going to sit. There are certain things, and I'll use a banking example again. If I just want to do a transaction, pay somebody, do a transfer or whatever it might be, I'll go onto an app.
Yeah.
If I need credit, I pick up the phone and I phone my banker,
yeah.
right? Because it's a whole different process. Now I'm looking for a bit of advice, I'm looking at the rates, I might want to structure it in different ways. Yeah. There's complexity in it. And I don't believe that it's going to be a long time before you can deliver really complex solutions, I think, through peer technology. So I think that trusted relationship and that partnership is going to be here, and it's going to remain. And specifically where there is a little bit more complexity to solve.
Okay, so I get the complexity, and I guess one of the ways for solving with the complexity is having more data. That has to be, the more data you have, the more problems you can solve. I get that. And I get what you're saying around the different types of people that use technology. And interestingly enough, when you look at they have this confidence matrix or confidence graph that shows people's confidence in moving to technology. And it's actually been coming down due to the scandals that are happening with all social medias and this access, this data breaches. We've heard about them in the media a lot. So now with that going down, you requiring more data for your technology to deal with more complexity. How do you marry those two?
Well, the data is not just about the complexity, right? It's about this sort of seamless and frictionless client experience, right? Because the better you understand the data, and the better your data is, the better you are at solving for a client's very specific and particular need. Having the data and being able to use it in a meaningful way is also a whole nother step and a whole nother layer. All the data is out there. I mean, we've all seen those statistics of we produced more data in the last 18 months that was produced sort of in the 20 years before that, and that continues.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of technology to convert that into a useful client experience is still coming. I think those types of developments are going to be some of the things that are going to drive your robo advice and the rest of it. But in the wealth and investment space, you're dealing with people who are global investors. They're multi-jurisdictional. They've got different structures, different products. And the world as well is, before you could solve for everything through just, let's say, the listed environment.
Yeah.
The number of listed instruments in the world has been coming down. It hasn't been going up. There's been some big IPOs in the US lately and a few things going on. But if you look at the number of counters that were listed 30 years ago, I think we're somewhere at a third of what we were, and a lot of the opportunities are sitting in the private market space, sitting in other areas, sitting in credit areas. So even from a product perspective, some of this complexity has come up. So it's not just about giving someone access to a listed instrument anymore. It's about bringing solutions and products together, and there's a lot of innovation that has to come in the background. And I'm not sure that all of that across multiple jurisdictions, across global investors and all of these different products can just be delivered through a platform. I think technology is going to have to allow us to package that and to deliver that in a seamless way and in a frictionless way. But to solve for such complex needs, I think, is still down the road.
Okay, so I get the sense you know exactly what we need to do. I guess the question for me is the how. You're obviously very involved in building businesses at the moment, and that's really exciting and a lot of exciting things, and we understand from what you're saying that technology is key to that. Now, how do you differentiate yourself? Do you have your own IT developing in-house tech shop, or do you outsource it? Because as you say, the world is changing. New products are coming, new things are listing, there's different things coming at us. The scope of products we invest in is getting wider. How do you keep pace with that? Because now, are we saying that you not only run just a wealth business, you run a technology shop and a wealth business?
Sure, and I think it's a great question. So the key thing there is the data. So as the complexity increases, you have to own, understand, and manage your own data, right? And it has to be on a normalized basis that you can present the information to your clients in a consistent way. So as the complexity increases, the data becomes the most important part. In terms of the data, us becoming a tech shop, I don't believe that there's value in building things from the bottom up, right? Many things are off the shelf, or you've got, let's say, the engine. So whether that be a way to package your data, whether it be access to online trading, whether it be a wealth tool that has a certain algorithm or produces a certain outcome. I think those are the types of things where you need to go and partner with the best people in the market. I feel quite strongly, though, that you have to own your client experience. So there's like this thin layer at the top where you integrate into all of these different things with the best providers of that technology. But if you're going to differentiate, putting a SASFIN sticker on somebody else's system and presenting to your clients for certain products in certain instances, maybe that works. But I think in the long term, owning that client experience, that integration layer, that's what's important to us. That's where you differentiate, and that's where you marry your culture and your set of solutions and your philosophy around wealth and investment with the technological outcome that your client is getting, without having to build everything from the ground up, from an engine perspective.
Well, we're trying to help our own internal clients better the service. For instance, better trading screens, better order capabilities, those kind of things, sitting in let's say on the trading desk. Or are we saying, let's take that process and give it to the client to allow them to do it? Because in fact, maybe it's become a commodity. I don't know.
Well, I think about it slightly differently.
Okay.
I think we want to give the client the choice. Right?
That's fair enough.
So in other words, whether you are a high net worth family office type or size client with a lot of complexity, and you decide that you are happy to go online and invest all your money into an ETF portfolio, that should be your decision, right?
Yeah.
If that's what you want. No one is saying that you're a certain client, you cannot have access to a solution, and you need to drive the engagement.
Yeah.
How much personal interaction do you want? To what extent do you want someone sitting across the table discussing certain elements of it? Are you happy with certain elements to go through a particular channel and other elements to be through a personal relationship?
Yeah.
What does become difficult is we cannot offer the personal relationship to everybody.
Agreed.
So, we do have to build the ability for those clients to be serviced in an appropriate way, in a cost-effective way, with solutions that talk to what their needs are. But I don't believe that we should be the ones directing the clients into where they sit in that engagement spectrum. The client must decide where they would like to fit into that engagement spectrum. And it's possible that not everything, it might be possible that we're not able to provide complicated offshore trust services to someone that it doesn't make financial sense to, given the cost effectiveness or the scale that you require to make that structure cost effective. But it doesn't mean that client cannot go and access a online, I don't want to call it a simple product, right? Because just because something's packaged simply doesn't mean there's not sophisticated in the background. But if that's what they want to access, they should be allowed.
You make an interesting point though, and there was a comment in one of the videos was, are we getting it right? And this particularly pertains to technology, of understanding the client's want versus the need. And due to the high price tag that we put on technology, we assume the want. And we push certain products down certain clients, and the examples are documented throughout time. We thought that many people were just going to go online and trade, but people didn't necessarily want to go online. That buyer's dissonance, they're having another person on the call when they say, well, I want to buy a certain share, and they listen for your voice to say, well, okay, he didn't say anything, so it must be a good idea. Are we, because of the high price tag in technology and the amount of time and people invested, are we not assuming people's wants, or do you think we've got a pretty handle on what their need is?
So I certainly think we can do a lot more in understanding the client's needs as part of our process of designing technology. But I don't think that the technology is about driving the client in a direction or assuming something. I believe that if you don't, and it's not just about technology and digital, right?
Yeah.
It's about the full client experience, right?
100%.
It's the process, it's the engagement, it's the access, it's all of those things. It's the, it's the true client experience. Digital is one component, technology is one component of that. But if you're not in that game, you're out. I don't believe that you can survive in financial services going forward if you're not able to provide that seamless and frictionless experience. So are lots of mistakes going to be made along the way? Absolutely. Do some assumptions need to be made on this journey? Definitely. But I think that's why having an agile approach to this and listening to our clients and having a feedback loop is very important. And it's difficult, right? We've certainly stumbled more than once on this journey. And I've been involved with tech stuff my whole career. I was very involved with implementing in my first position on a trading desk. I was very involved with the online trading system at that point in time. We had over-the-counter products. We built a system around that. I went off and went on a sort of tech journey trying to package products for clients, and it's difficult, and it's iterative, right? It's a constant feedback loop. So yes, possibly, but what's very important to me, you use the phrase push products, right? Definitely not going to push products, right?
Okay.
For me, it's about pulling clients into the right stuff, and I think technology has to produce a solution for a client, right, which makes sense for a client, which is simple to understand and it's cost effective. It's super important, right? It's not just a way to sort of capture or lock someone into a particular product. It's an enabler, and it needs to be an enabler.
Okay, so just to wrap it up, I appreciate all the insights today. I think this is a question that needs to be asked with your experience. What's the next big shiny thing in technology? You can't say robo-advising because that's been spoken around. Within, what do you think the next big thing in technology will be that will influence wealth and investment specifically?
I think it's going to be developments in AI and machine learning, which are sort of similar, but they're not exactly the same thing. And it's a very, very broad topic, so I'm really generalizing. But not just in terms of client experience. You talk about the data. So large amounts of data. This is where these types of technologies can really help enhance client experience. I think it's going to start making its way into the actual investment of money. So whether it be a tool towards asset allocation or other investment. I mean, a lot of investment is quantitatively driven processes. Not all of it. A lot of it is. So I think it's going to start playing an important part there. And even down the sort of value chain, right? RegTech, so what does it mean for compliance? What does it mean for monitoring? What does it mean for, creating a seamless experience around that? Those types of things are all going to be data and I think algorithm driven within that space. So I think that is probably the area that is going to see the most disruption in the next 10 years.
Great. Thanks very much for your time today. I know I'm privy to some of those things that you've got in the pipeline, and it's obviously very exciting times ahead. But a lot of hard work ahead, a lot of things would change, and I guess it's just about staying ahead of the game.
No, thanks, Flynn. Look, it's great. I'm very excited about the stuff that we're doing. It's difficult, when you stumble from time to time, and it's quite a difficult conversation for me because we've got such a great team. We've got serious skills that we've brought into our business to deal with some of these things, and I technically do not understand all of the detail. I'm trying to sort of give a view and articulate it in a way. But I feel that we've resourced correctly and are resourcing correctly for what we need to deliver in the next few years.
Perfect. Thank you.